Chapter 7 The White Tower. The troll's stream was soon left far behind as Alex and his companions followed the road to the east. The weather grew warmer as the days passed, and the fields and forests became greener. They didn't meet anyone as they traveled, and to Alex's relief, they had no more encounters with trolls or anything worse. Bregnest insisted they keep a watch at night, however, and he had them draw marked stones from a bag to decide which watch each of them would take. Alex was happy when he drew the first watch, as it seemed to be the best to him. Early one day, they came to a fork in the road, and Bregnest had them stop and gather around him. One road turned sharply to the south, while the other continued mostly east, bending slightly to the north. "Which road shall we take?" Bregnest questioned. Alex knew Bregnest wasn't really looking for an answer. He just wanted to hear what each member of the company had to say.
"The south road will be better,"
said Halfton, without commitment.
"but there are many people that way, and the road to our final goal will be longer."
"East and north lies the White Tower," Archon commented, looking into the distance. "It might be wise to seek the Oracle."
"The way to the tower may be a long one,"
said Thrang thoughtfully. "But worth the time spent," Tayo answered him.
"And when has waiting ever been troublesome to a dwarf?"
asked Skeld with a laugh.
"It will give you time to grow back your beard, though our young wizard burnt off but little of it."
"It would be pleasant to see the White Tower," Andy commented softly as the others laughed at Skeld's jest. "The Oracle may help us in a quest."
"Only if she can use a sword,"
Skeld laughed.
"What do you think, Alex?"
questioned Bregnest. Alex's companions had become extremely interested in his opinion since his victory over the troll. It didn't seem to matter how many times Alex told them he'd just been lucky. They simply saw his luck as part of his magical powers, and laughed whenever he expressed his own doubts. Alex knew from reading the Adventurer's Handbook that the South Road was considered the safer road. There were many cities to the south as well, and he thought it might be nice to see how the people of this land lived. In his heart, though, he wanted to see the White Tower of the Oracle. "I think the South Road would be safest, but the East Road would be wisest," Alex answered, "and I would like to try to speak to the Oracle if I can." "Even if you have a chance to speak with her, the Oracle may not tell you what you wish to hear," said Archon in a thoughtful tone. "Just the same, I'd like to try," Alex replied more boldly.
"As would I," Bregnest added. "So east we will go, and hope the Oracle will agree to speak with us."
Alex fell back into line beside Andy as they started forward again. "How far is the White Tower from here?" Alex questioned.
"It depends,"
Andy replied.
"Some say the tower moves, others say it's hidden, so only those who the Oracle wishes to speak with can find it."
"What do you believe?"
"I believe we'll find it,"
Andy said. "I hope so," said Alex.
"Why is that?"
Skeld asked, looking over his shoulder at Alex. "It would be good to see some people," Alex said. "Even if we don't get to talk to the Oracle, it would be good to see a city or town as we travel." "Adventures aren't about seeing cities or people," said Tayo. "No, I suppose not," replied Alex. "I just thought—"
"Thought what?"
asked Skeld as a smile spread across his face. "I thought there would be more than just riding and camping," answered Alex.
"Ready to fight another troll, are you?"
Skeld asked with a laugh. "No, nothing like that," said Alex, laughing as well. "It's just that seeing new places and meeting new people would make things more—"
"Adventurous,"
offered Andy. "Yes," said Alex. "Adventures aren't all about excitement and finding treasure," said Tayo with a slight smile.
"Most adventures can be very common, even boring,"
laughed Skeld.
"What's so funny?"
Halfton questioned, slowing his horse to ride beside Skeld.
"Alex doesn't think our adventure is very exciting,"
Skeld answered happily.
"Excitement? Bah!"
said Halfton.
"We don't need more excitement. We'll have enough of that when we face Slathbog."
"Too much, perhaps," Tayo added in a grim tone. That's not what I meant, Alex protested, but then he saw Halfton wink.
Don't worry,
He said.
there will likely be plenty of excitement before we're all safe at home once more.
Alex let the subject drop, trying to understand his own feelings about excitement and adventure. All this travel did seem very, as Skeld had said, boring. Still, he was in a new land, learning new things, and not cleaning up or washing dishes at his stepfather's tavern. They rode east for 2 more days, stopping only at midday for a meal, and then riding until it was almost dark. The warm weather meant they could simply sleep on their blankets under the stars. Alex enjoyed sleeping in the open, because each night one of his friends would tell a story about a previous adventure. On the first night after the crossroad, Thrang told of how he had joined an adventure to capture a dangerous sea monster. With great excitement and some vigorous demonstrations, Thrang explained how the monster had almost gotten away, but was captured in the end. His descriptions of how the monster acted amused them all, and when he finished his story, Alex and the rest of the company cheered. The next night, Tayo told of an adventure to rescue a young prince who had been wrongfully imprisoned, and though his tone was not as animated as Thrang's, Tayo's story was still cheered at the end. And he rules his kingdom still, Tayo concluded in a satisfied tone, and remembers who's friends when they visit. Alex wondered about Tayo as he prepared for bed that night. He thought it was strange that Tayo always seemed to be in a dark mood, seldom showing any sign of happiness beyond a smile and rarely laughing or joking like Skeld and Andy. Alex thought some deep sorrow must be in him, or perhaps he simply worried too much. On the 3rd morning from the crossroad, Alex heard a strange dinging noise. He thought he must be dreaming, but when the sound came again, he sat up, rubbing his eyes and wondering if his friends were playing a joke on him. Something dropped onto his legs. He looked down at his blankets and blinked. Standing on his blankets was a strange-looking creature. It was the size and shape of a bowling pin, but bright yellow with a red strip zigzagging around its middle. It had a single bird-like leg. Thrang? Alex called in as normal a tone as he could manage. What's this?
What's what?
Thrang asked, turning away from cooking breakfast. This, Alex replied, pointing.
Oh, that,
said Thrang, smiling as he hurried over.
It's a jeeb, of course. Well, a bottleneck jeeb to be exact. Wonderful creatures.
So they're not dangerous? Alex asked, his surprise replaced by curiosity.
No, they're messengers.
Thrang replied.
Good ones, too, because they've got a bit of magic in them.
More magic?
Of course, they can only answer yes and no questions.
Thrang continued.
When they honk, it means no, and when they ding, it means yes.
Alex nodded his understanding without looking away from the jeeb.
Watch,
said Thrang, turning to the jeeb.
Do you have a message for our company?
Onk, the jeeb replied, its head transforming into the shape of a small bicycle horn.
Are you just visiting, then?
Thrang questioned. Onk.
Then do you have a message for a person in our company?
Thrang asked. Bing, the jeeb replied, its head changing into a small bell.
Do you know who the message is for?
Bing!
Excellent,
said Thrang.
Is the message for Bregnest, our leader?
Onk,
Very odd.
Thrang muttered.
Is the message for Archon the Elf?
Onk. Thrang scratched his head.
Well then, can you find the person who the message is for?
Bing! Thrang looked at the jeeb for a second before continuing.
Have you already found the person your message is for?
Bing! Your message is for me? Alex asked in surprise. Ding, ding, ding! But I don't know anyone who'd send me a message, Alex said, looking at Thrang. Everyone I know who'd know anything about jeebs is here.
Never mind that now,
said Thrang.
Ask the jeeb to give you the message.
May I have the message? Alex asked. Ding! A thin hole like a mouth appeared in the middle of the jeeb, and a long envelope emerged, flopping into Alex's hands. Thank you, said Alex. The jeep remained standing on Alex's legs. Is it waiting for something? He asked.
Payment, of course,
said Thrang. How do I pay a bottlenecked jeep?
Oh, they'll take silver or gold coins,
Thrang answered.
but they prefer gems if they can get them.
Gems? Questioned Alex.
Yes, gems.
Said Thrang.
Jeebs know a fair price for any gem you may give them. If the gem is worth more than you owe, they'll give you back the difference in gold and silver coins. Try it.
Alex retrieved a small emerald from his bag and held it toward the jeep, who simply stood on its leg and waited.
Toss it up.
Thrang instructed, amused by Alex's puzzled look. Alex tossed the emerald in a high arc, and the jeep jumped off Alex's leg and caught the gem in midair. Ding! The jeep sounded as it landed back on its single leg. The jeep bent down for a moment, and Alex saw 6 gold coins and 3 silver coins on the blanket.
I told you, a fair price.
Thrang laughed. The jeep remained motionless while Alex collected the coins and put them in his bag. Now what? Alex questioned, assuming the jeep would leave once it had been paid.
Are you waiting for an answer?
Thrang asked the jeep. Ding! Alex looked at the envelope in his hand. Carefully, he opened it and removed a single folded piece of paper. Looking once more at the jeep and Thrang, he began to read. Master Alexander Taylor-esque. Please accept this invitation for yourself and your company to dine with me on your arrival in 2 days' time, awaiting your reply. At the bottom of the note was a drawing that looked like a tower with some strange writing next to it. Alex showed the letter to Thrang, who seemed stunned. What's all the noise about? Andy asked as he rolled over in his blankets.
Best reply quickly,
said Thrang, holding the letter back to Alex.
Do you have paper and pen?
Yes, said Alex, reaching for his magic bag. But who's the letter from?
The Oracle herself,
said Thrang in a tone of wonder.
Didn't you see how it was signed?
What are you two talking about? Andy questioned again. Here, said Alex, handing him the letter he'd just received. Retrieving his writing things from his bag, Alex looked at Thrang. What should I say?
Just say you're happy to accept her invitation, and you're sure the rest of the company will accept as well.
Thrang answered.
And don't forget to sign it.
Alex wrote as carefully as he could. I am pleased to accept your invitation, and am confident the rest of the company will accept as well. Alex Taylor. How's that? Alex asked, handing his note to Thrang.
No, that won't do,
said Thrang, looking it over.
Doesn't sound right.
This came for you? Andy interrupted, holding the Oracle's letter and looking as stunned as Thrang had. Yes, said Alex.
Archon,
Thrang called.
We need your assistance.
How may I be of help? Archon asked as he walked into camp carrying 2 large rabbits. Laying the rabbits next to the fire, he moved toward Thrang and Alex.
Read this,
said Thrang, snatching the letter from Andy's hand and giving it to Archon. Impressive, said Archon with a smile. It's not often that one is invited to dine with the Oracle, and to include the entire company.
Include the entire company in what?
Asked Bregness as he walked into camp carrying several water bottles. It seems our young friend is better known than we thought, replied Archon, passing the note to Bregnest. Bregnest's eyes widened as he read the note, then he carefully refolded the paper and handed it to Alex.
Best make a reply.
That's what we're trying to do,
said Thrang, sounding put out.
I thought Archon could help as he's best with letters.
Pleased to assist, said Archon, taking Alex's writing things and thinking for a moment. Let's put it like this. I am honored at your favor and pleased to accept your kind invitation. I am confident my companions will feel as honored and pleased as I do. Your servant. Now sign the bottom, Alexander Taylor-esque. Archon handed the pen back to Alex.
I knew an elf would have the right answer,
said Thrang with a smile.
Always clever in language, the elves.
You are most kind, said Archon, bowing to Thrang. Now what do I do? Alex asked as he carefully folded the note and placed it in a new envelope.
Here, let me,
said Thrang, taking the envelope. Turning to the jeep, he held the envelope carefully by one edge.
Please take this reply to the Oracle.
He said to the jeep.
And if you require payment, please deliver the note and return. We will be happy to pay you.
Ding! The jeep sounded and accepted the envelope from Thrang. With Alex's reply accepted and Thrang's instructions understood, the jeep hopped off Alex's legs and, with a slight popping sound, it vanished into thin air.
Remarkable creatures,
said Thrang happily. At breakfast that morning, Thrang told Tayo, Skeld, and Halfdan the news of Alex's message. The three warriors had been taking care of the horses when the note had arrived, and they insisted on hearing the entire story with every honk and ding in place.
Seems our young wizard's made quite a name for himself,
Skeld teased.
First he single-handedly kills a three-legged troll, and now he's been invited to dine with the Oracle.
We're all invited, Alex corrected. Yes, but the message came to you, Tayo commented in his normal, somber fashion, which I think is odd. I would have expected it to come to Bregnest as our leader.
It is of small concern who the message came to,
said Bregnest, waving off Tayo's comment.
I think it is odd that we were all asked to join the Oracle for dinner. I've never heard of such a thing,
commented Halfdan without looking up from his plate.
Must mean something special.
It is odd, but not unheard of, said Archon, winking at Alex. And as far as it meaning something special, well, who can say? I don't know what to think, said Alex.
Well, I think it's wonderful,
said Andy, slapping Alex's shoulder.
As do I,
Thrang added, putting his cooking pots away.
And it's a sign of good fortune as well.
Only time will show our fortunes, said Tayo, standing up and looking down the road to the east.
And it is time we were on our way to seek them,
Bregnest added.
At the very least, we will have a grand meal.
As they traveled that day, Alex thought of the Oracle's note, wondering why it had been sent to him and not to Bregnest or one of the others. There was no special reason he could think of for the Oracle to be interested in him. Ever since Mr. Blackburn had said he could use a staff, Alex's friends all thought of him as a wizard in training, but Alex had his doubts. He knew he had some magical ability, but he still knew so little about magic. Surely not enough to interest an Oracle.
Have you read about the Oracle in the White Tower?
Andy questioned as they rode along. A little, Alex replied. The Adventurer's Handbook said there are many oracles, but the Oracle of the White Tower is one of the best known. I haven't finished reading everything yet.
They say she's 1,000 years old,
Andy said in a thoughtful tone.
Though many things are said, and few there are who can say what is the truth.
What do you want to ask the Oracle? Alex questioned, lowering his voice so the others wouldn't hear. I mean, if you don't mind my asking. Andy thought for a moment before he answered, a look of inner struggle on his face.
I would rather not say. Not that I doubt you to keep my thoughts, but because I doubt myself in speaking them,
he added quickly. Fair enough, said Alex with a smile to ease Andy's troubled look. I should not have asked.
Each man's question is private and personal,
said Andy, returning Alex's smile.
Difficult to explain to anyone but himself.
There was little talking as they traveled that day. They ate their midday meal quickly, and it seemed they all were in a hurry to move on once more. When they camped that night, they remained restless and eager.
It seems we would all rush to the White Tower,
Skeld laughed, as much at himself as the others.
Even I would give up sleep if I thought tomorrow would come sooner.
It will come soon enough, Tayo replied glumly, though I fear it may not bring what we hope for.
Always a worrier,
Skeld laughed.
Your wisdom may be sound, my friend, but you're always a cloud of darkness.
And I am seldom disappointed, Tayo answered with a slight smile.
Enough,
Bregness interrupted.
We must start early tomorrow.
As the others rolled themselves in their blankets, Archon remained seated next to Alex by the fire, humming softly to himself, but not speaking. When Alex woke Thrang for the next watch, Archon's strange humming remained in his ears, and he fell asleep thinking about the happy tune. The next morning, the eastern sky was still black as they quickly ate their breakfast and started off. They rode faster that morning than normal, and with each bend of the road or small hill they passed, they looked forward in hopes of seeing the White Tower. The road became more rugged as the day passed, and the path twisted between hills that slowly grew larger on each side of them as they traveled. Alex thought it was well past midday when Bregness suddenly stopped in the road.
"My friends, we have arrived,"
Bregness said over his shoulder. As they gathered around Bregnest, Alex and the others could see a great white tower standing in a wide, open valley below them. Pure white walls ran out from the tower, encircling lush orchards and gardens around its base. Beyond the wall, on the southern side of the tower, was a small city made of sand-colored stone. Bregnest led them down the hills and into the valley, following the road toward the city. As they drew nearer, a rider came racing toward them from the direction of the tower. He carried a large green banner with a white tower in the middle of it.
"Are you the party of Sylvan Bregnest?"
the rider asked politely, reining in the horse.
"We are," Bregnest answered.
"Well met, Master Bregnest," said the horseman with a slight bow.
"The Lady of the Tower bids you welcome, and asks that you and your companions follow me to the Tower Gardens. There you will be given accommodations for your stay."
"We are honored," said Bregnest, bowing his head slightly to the messenger.
"Then come, honored guests," said the horseman, turning his horse toward the tower. "The gardens are not far, and all has been made ready for your arrival."
They left the road and followed the horseman without speaking, all of them looking up at the massive tower in front of them. When they passed through a large gate in one of the walls, Alex noticed a strange tingling feeling in his hands and feet, but he quickly forgot about it as they entered a vast orchard full of sweet-smelling blossoms. As they emerged from the orchard, the horseman halted in front of 4 white buildings that looked like small houses compared to the enormous tower next to them.
"The Lady of the Tower asks that you rest here," said the horseman, nodding toward the buildings. "You will find all that you require in the west houses. If you need anything, ring one of the gongs, and it will be brought to you." "What of our horses?" Bregnest asked.
"The westernmost house is a stable," the rider replied. "Refreshments have been laid out for you in the second house. The third house is for bathing. The fourth for sleeping."
"The lady is too kind," said Bregnest, bowing once more. "You will be summoned for the evening meal when the sun touches the western hills."
The horseman nodded once and rode away toward the tower. "The lady shows us great kindness," said Archon as the company rode toward the first house.
"Indeed," Bregnest agreed. "I wonder why we should be so favored." "Because of our young wizard friend, of course,"
Skeld laughed, climbing off his horse and looking into the stable.
"This is finer than many inns I've slept in," he added.
"Yes, but you'll sleep anywhere,"
Thrang replied with a laugh of his own. They all laughed at Thrang's comment as they led their horses into the stable. "You should be comfortable here, Cherie," said Alex, patting the horse's neck. "I don't know much about stables, but this looks like a first-class one." Cherie whinnied loudly in agreement and stepped out from under her saddle as Alex lifted it from her back. She was a clever horse, and Alex was quick to tell her so. Putting aside the saddle, he quickly brushed her down, then hurried out of the stable to join the others in the second house. The second house was a simple, massive stone pavilion. The front was completely open, the view overlooking the courtyard and the gardens beyond. Heavy wooden panels were folded like an accordion at both sides of the opening to cover the front of the house in cold or stormy weather. As Alex entered the second house, an overwhelming mixture of smells greeted him. A banquet had been laid out for them on 3 large tables. 8 comfortable-looking chairs were placed around a smaller 4th table in the center of the room, waiting for them to arrive.
"The Oracle knows the way to a man's heart,"
Skeld commented, piling food on his plate.
"The way to your heart is no great mystery, Skeld,"
said Tayo, looking happier than Alex had ever seen him. The food on the tables, as Alex found out from his friends, was from many different lands. Alex tried so many different dishes, he had trouble remembering what any of them were called. He was a little worried about some of the food, however, because he wasn't sure what it was made of, and Skeld kept joking about what the ingredients might be. Some of the food was easy to identify, and the taste of even simple things like potatoes or peas seemed more intense to Alex. There were all kinds of meat and vegetables that Alex had never seen before, and several kinds of fresh, warm bread. Sweet, sour, spicy, and even smoky flavors turned up in the different dishes, each new flavor better than the last.
If this is refreshment, what will dinner be?
Questioned Thrang, refilling his mug with some aged red ale that he seemed to enjoy. I doubt it will be so grand as this, Archon replied with a knowing smile. It is said the lady eats little. I doubt so many foods will be brought to her table. They left the banquet behind them, moving into the third house, the bathhouse. The company entered a room with several small changing rooms inside it. Each of the changing rooms had a stack of clean, white towels, as well as a place for Alex and his friends to put their things. On the far side of the room was another doorway, leading to a room with a dozen enormous brass tubs. Low walls separated each of the tubs for privacy, but still allowed the adventurers to talk to each other while they bathed. 8 of the tubs were already filled with steaming water.
A blessing indeed,
said Skeld as he dove into the tub nearest the door, splashing water everywhere.
The water is meant to stay in the tub,
growled Thrang, wiping water out of his eyes. Alex thought the hot bath was even better than the meal. The hot water was wonderful, and he couldn't remember the last time he'd felt so clean and comfortable. He made a mental note to add a bath to his magic bag as soon as he had a chance. Clean and full, they left the room with the brass tubs and returned to their clothes. There was a moment of stunned silence when they re-entered the first room. Next to each companion's dirty travel clothes was a fine new set of clothes waiting for them. New leather boots were waiting as well, shining from fresh polish. The Oracle's kindness continues, said Archon, looking at a sky-blue shirt that was sitting by his things. Why does the lady favor us so? Tayo questioned, looking at his new silver-gray shirt. We have done nothing worthy of such honors. Alex dressed in a dark green shirt that fit him perfectly, and his new belt had a bright silver buckle on it. He pulled on his new boots and looked at himself in one of the large mirrors near the entrance of the building.
A proper adventurer,
said Skeld from behind him,
and a perfect fit all around.
It seems strange, Alex commented, looking at Skeld in the mirror. Are oracles normally so kind?
At times,
Skeld replied,
though perhaps not so often as some would hope, and rarely so generous as this.
The ways of oracles should not be questioned,
said Thrang, pulling on a dark red shirt.
If there's a reason for this kindness, we will learn it soon enough.
Whatever the reason, we seem to have won the lady's favor,
said Bregnest, pushing Skeld away from the mirror so he could look at himself. When they finally left the bathhouse, the sun was already moving to the west. Alex and his friends walked into the sleeping house where they found 8 large beds ready and waiting for them. Each of them chose a bed, and Alex noticed that the others put their magic bags and weapons on their beds. Alex did the same, though he wasn't too happy about leaving the magic bag behind.
It's tradition,
said Thrang, seeing Alex's look.
The bags are for travelers, not guests, and weapons are for warriors, not friends.
Alex nodded, then followed Thrang out of the sleeping house into the shady courtyard where they waited to be summoned. They did not have to wait long. As soon as the sun touched the western hills, a young woman appeared from the tower. My mistress bids you welcome, she said in a voice that sounded like falling water. She asks that you follow me to the dining chamber of the tower.
We are honored,
replied Bregnest, bowing to the young woman. The rest of the company followed Bregnest's example and bowed. The young woman seemed pleased and smiled as she turned back to the tower. Bregnest led the company as they followed their guide into the tower. On entering the tower, they ascended a wide stone staircase that looked polished and new. Alex wondered how old the young woman was, and how she had come to work at the Oracle's tower. He felt a strange tingling in his hands and feet again, and guessed that he was feeling the magic of the tower. At the top of the stairs, their guide turned to the right and, after a short walk, the company entered a large room with a round table in the center. On the side of the table stood a high-backed silver chair that was flanked by 8 plain wooden chairs. "Master Bregnest," said the young woman, indicating the wooden chair directly to the left of the silver one. The woman continued calling each of the company by name and indicating which seat they should take. Lastly, she asked Alex to take the chair on the right of the silver chair. "My mistress will join you shortly," said the woman, bowing to the company and departing.
You are highly honored,
Thrang said to Alex, sitting down on Bregnest's left. Alex didn't understand what he meant, but he remembered how the company had been seated around Bregnest at their dinner in Telos. There seemed to be some meaning to the seating arrangement then, and there was now as well, but Alex didn't know what it was. "Welcome, honored guests," a warm, friendly-sounding voice said. A tall, dark-haired woman stood in the doorway, her bright blue eyes moving around the table to look at each of them. She wore a pure white dress edged in silver, and a wide, happy smile. The adventurers stared, dumbfounded, as the woman gracefully crossed the room and took her place in the silver chair. "Please, be at ease," said the woman. "I am Ionon, Oracle of the White Tower. I welcome you here, and I thank you for joining me."
"It is our great pleasure," Bregnest managed to reply as he started to rise from his chair. "The honor is truly ours."
"You are most kind, Sylvan Bregnest," replied the lady with a smile. "Please, be seated."
"May I introduce my company?"
Bregnest asked as he returned to his seat. "I know them all," replied Ionon. "I have watched as you have traveled in this land, and I know of your quest."
"You know much, great lady,"
Bregnest stammered.
"and we are in your debt for the kindness you have shown us."
"You need not be so formal, Master Bregnest," Ionon replied. "This is but a dinner party. Tonight I am simply your host, not the Oracle."
"Your pardon, lady,"
said Bregnest, inclining his head.
"Though I must say, we have felt somewhat troubled by your kindness. We have done nothing to deserve your generous gifts."
Ionon laughed happily before she replied. "I have shown you a small kindness, though some would think it great." She clapped her hands, and several servants carrying trays entered the room. The table was quickly filled with an assortment of food and drink, and Ionon laughed again as she looked at the company. "I hope you see something you like," said Ionon. "It's not often my cooks have reason to prepare such a meal."
"Lady," Bregnest stammered, "we are overcome with your kindness."
Ionon smiled and invited them to help themselves to whatever they liked. Though the company had eaten a great deal earlier in the day, they each made an effort to at least sample everything on the table. Alex noticed Ionon herself ate little of anything. "Don't worry about me, Master Taylor," said Ionon, looking Alex in the eyes. "I will not go without. Please, have some more." Alex was impressed with Ionon, and it seemed that all his friends were as well. They all took great pains to show proper respect, remaining silent whenever Ionon spoke. "You are excellent guests," Ionon commented when the trays had been picked clean. "I hate for this evening to end, but end it must. Before you rest, though, I will answer the 2 questions that you all would ask." Alex and his friends straightened in their seats as Ionon spoke, looks of wonder on their faces. "The first is why my invitation was sent to young Master Taylor instead of Master Bregnest," she said, smiling at Alex. This was because Master Taylor has the power of a true wizard in him, though he doubts it himself. And a wizard, even one untrained, should always be given respect. Alex's face flushed red as Ionon spoke, and he looked down at his napkin. You need not feel shame or embarrassment here, said Ionon, reaching out her hand to lift Alex's chin. You are among friends, and what I say is true. Alex continued to blush as he looked at Ionon, but now he didn't feel embarrassed at all. The second question, she continued, looking around at the company, is what I would ask of you in return for my kindness. Ionon paused for a moment before continuing. Alex noticed that his friends looked worried. He wondered what Ionon would ask of them.
Ask what you will, great lady, Bregnest said sincerely. If it is within our power, we shall do it.
You speak before you know what I would ask, said Ionon in a thoughtful tone. I will not hold you bound to this now, nor will I speak of what I will ask until a later time. Be content to know that I will ask, and I believe you will do as I ask for friendship alone.
You are most generous, lady, replied Bregnest. Your counsel is your own. We will await your request.
Ionon smiled. Go now and find your rest. I will speak with each of you tomorrow as the Oracle of the White Tower. The company stood and bowed as Ionon left the room. For a moment, Alex thought the light in the room seemed to dim behind her.
My lords, said a young man from the doorway, I am Hrothgar, and the lady commands I should see to your needs this evening. The lady is most kind, said Bregnest, nodding to Hrothgar, though I feel that sleep will be our only need this night. I thank you for your kindness, and the lady for sending you. As you wish, Hrothgar replied with a bow. I will guide you to your rest. They followed Hrothgar down a corridor for some distance, then turned left, climbing a flight of stairs. At the top of the stairs, they turned right and suddenly found themselves outside the tower entrance. But we went upstairs when we entered, said Alex, looking up at the tower in puzzlement. The inside of the tower changes, Hrothgar replied. The rooms and corridors never remain the same for long.
Ingenious security,
said Thrang.
Anyone not trained in how the tower moves would soon be lost.
That is true, Master Silversmith, said Hrothgar, though that is perhaps the simplest protection the tower employs. Alex and his companions said goodnight to Hrothgar and returned to the sleeping house. They were tired after the long day, and there was little talk as they prepared for bed. One by one, they put out the lamps and went to sleep. The others were soon snoring softly. Alex's body ached for sleep, but his eyes would not stay closed, and his mind was full of questions. Finally, he gave up and climbed out of bed and pulled on his new clothes. Quietly, he walked to the entrance of the house and slipped out into the moonlight. He thought Hrothgar might be there, but the courtyard was empty and quiet. Alex walked to the stable to check on Cherie. The moonlight was bright, and he had no trouble seeing his way. Inside the stable, several lamps were still burning. Alex wondered why they had not been put out. Well, Cherie, said Alex, patting the horse's neck, have you eaten as well as the rest of us? Cherie nuzzled Alex's shoulder affectionately, but made no sound. Alex leaned against her neck, rubbing it gently, but said nothing more. His mind was buzzing with questions, and he desperately tried to make sense of them. You show this horse great kindness, a voice said from behind him, though once you feared her. Alex spun around, surprised that he was not alone. There is a great bond between you two, continued Ionon, smiling at him from the stable door. I have grown to trust her, Alex stammered, unsure of what to say or how to act. And she puts great trust in you as well, Ionon replied, walking over and patting Cherie's forehead.
I am surprised that such strong feelings have grown so quickly between you and this noble steed.
Perhaps need has quickened the growth, replied Alex.
Perhaps, Ionon continued to rub Cherie's forehead. What keeps you from your sleep?
I have so many questions. I was trying to make some order of them, Alex answered.
And some doubts as well. Ionon's blue eyes seemed to look right through him, but they were soft and kind.
Yes, said Alex, looking away.
Do not be troubled, said Ionon, stepping away from Cherie. You will find the answers you need in time.
And if the answers are more than I can bear? Alex asked, voicing his greatest fear before he could stop himself.
Then you will break,
Ionon answered in a matter-of-fact tone.
Though I believe you are much stronger than you think.
I doubt it, said Alex, turning away from Ionon's gaze.
As do all who have not been tested, replied Ionon with a kind smile. You will have trials, that much is certain. How you deal with your trials, only time will tell.
Can't you see the future? Alex asked.
The future is not yet written. I can see only possibilities and advise on the best way to make them come to pass, or not come to pass, as the case may be.
But I thought the oracle could
see the future of men and tell them what will be. No, there are none who have that power. As I said, I see possibilities, nothing more. Alex stood quietly, thinking about Ionon's words.
He had hoped to find some answers at the White Tower, but now he wasn't sure he would find them anywhere.
I feel so confused, said Alex softly, though his mind felt more restful since Ionon had entered the stable. I just don't know what I should do. Come, said Ionon, taking his hand and leading him out of the stable. You need your rest. We will speak again tomorrow. At the door to the sleeping house, Ionon let go of Alex's hand. He suddenly felt weak and tired. Stumbling slightly, he found his way back to his bed, managing to get undressed before falling into a deep and peaceful sleep.